Alex and Sophie had been in a relationship for nearly 2 years. At first, everything felt effortless. The laughter, the late-night conversations, and the overwhelming excitement of being together. But as time passed, misunderstandings crept in. What once felt easy now seemed complicated. Alex often felt like he could never say the right thing. Whenever Sophie was upset, she would pour out her feelings, expecting him to respond in a way that made her feel heard. But he often withdrew, unsure of what to say, hoping she would eventually calm down on her own. Sophie, on the other hand, felt increasingly distant from him. She longed for deeper conversations, for moments where he would open up instead of shutting her out. Their love was still there, but the frustration of not being understood slowly built a wall between them. It wasn't that they didn't care. It was that they were speaking different emotional languages without realizing it. One evening, after another unresolved argument, Alex confided in his best friend, Ryan, who handed him a book. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Alex was skeptical at first. How could a book really help fix their relationship? But as he turned the pages, he began to see a pattern that felt all too familiar. The book explained that men and women have fundamentally different ways of dealing with emotions. Men, like those from Mars, prefer to process their problems in solitude, retreating into their cave to find a solution. Women, like those from Venus, process emotions by talking through them. They don't necessarily seek solutions, just connection and understanding. Alex saw himself in the descriptions of Martians. Whenever he was stressed or overwhelmed, his instinct was to withdraw, believing he needed to fix things on his own before sharing them. Sophie, a true Venusian, found comfort in discussing her feelings, hoping for reassurance from him. What she saw as emotional connection, he saw as pressure. This realization made him rethink every argument they had. Sophie had never been trying to criticize him or demand instant solutions. She just needed to feel that he was emotionally present. And when he pulled away, she felt abandoned, not knowing that his distance had nothing to do with how much he loved her. The more he read, the clearer things became. The book explained how small shifts in understanding could create harmony between partners. Men didn't have to change who they were, nor did women, but both needed to recognize and respect each other's natural differences. That night, Alex made a silent decision. He would try to bridge the gap between them, not by changing who he was, but by understanding Sophie better. He knew that love alone wasn't enough. It was understanding that made love last. Sophie had spent many nights wondering why Alex didn't express himself the way she did. To her, sharing feelings was second nature. She believed that if two people loved each other, they should talk openly about their emotions. Yet, whenever she tried to get Alex to talk, he seemed to close off even more. She had begun to wonder if she was asking for too much. She wanted reassurance, but the more she sought it, the more distant he became. She often felt unheard, as though her emotions were too overwhelming for him. One evening, Alex approached her differently than before. He didn't seem defensive or withdrawn. Instead, he made an effort to acknowledge her feelings, and though his words were few, his presence was enough. For the first time, Sophie felt that he was listening, not just hearing her, but truly understanding her. What Sophie didn't realize was that Alex had started applying what he had learned. He had discovered that when women spoke about their feelings, they weren't looking for immediate solutions. He had always believed that if Sophie was upset, he needed to fix things. But she didn't want solutions. She wanted validation. At the same time, Sophie noticed how Alex responded when he was dealing with stress. Instead of demanding that he talk immediately, she gave him the space he needed, trusting that he would come back to her when he was ready. It wasn't easy at first, but as she let go of the need for immediate reassurance, she saw a change in him. He felt less pressured, and in turn, he started opening up more naturally. Their relationship began to shift in ways neither of them expected. The small changes in their interactions made a significant difference. Arguments that once escalated into days of silence now ended with mutual understanding. Sophie no longer felt ignored, and Alex no longer felt suffocated. The book had given them the missing piece, the knowledge that love wasn't about making each other the same, but about embracing their differences. As their relationship evolved, Alex and Sophie started noticing another pattern. Their emotional needs weren't just different in how they processed stress, but also in how they felt appreciated. Before reading Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, Alex had always assumed that doing big things, like planning a surprise trip or fixing Sophie's broken laptop, was the best way to show love. However, he was beginning to realize that Sophie didn't necessarily need grand gestures. She valued the small, everyday expressions of love, the kind words, the thoughtful gestures, the feeling of being cherished in little moments. On the other hand, Sophie had always thought that offering emotional support was the best way to show love. She would listen to Alex, ask him deep questions, and encourage him to share his feelings. But she now understood that Alex felt loved when he was trusted and appreciated, rather than when he was encouraged to talk more than he was comfortable with. She began to see how, in the past, she had unknowingly made him feel like he wasn't good enough. When she constantly asked him why he wasn't opening up, he felt like she was trying to change him. But when she started expressing appreciation for the things he did, whether it was fixing something around the house or simply being there for her, his confidence in their relationship grew. Likewise, Alex began making small changes. Instead of waiting for big occasions, he started showing his love in the ways Sophie valued most. A small note left in her bag, a random text during the day, or simply holding her hand more often made a significant difference.
Their relationship was beginning to feel lighter, more natural. There was no longer a battle of expectations, just a dance of giving and receiving love in ways that made both of them feel valued. Despite the progress they had made, Alex and Sophie still faced moments of tension. But this time, they approached conflicts differently. Before, arguments would escalate quickly. Alex would shut down, Sophie would push for a conversation, and both would end up feeling hurt. But now, they had a new understanding. Arguments weren't about winning, but about understanding. Sophie had learned that timing was everything. If Alex was in his cave, pushing for an immediate conversation wouldn't work. Instead, she waited until he was ready, and when they did talk, she focused on expressing her feelings without blaming him. Alex, in turn, learned the power of reassurance. Instead of withdrawing completely, he let Sophie know that he cared, even if he needed space. A simple, "I just need some time to process this, but I love you," was enough to ease her worries. One evening, they faced a test of their growth. Alex had been overwhelmed at work, and instead of sharing his stress, he had gone quiet. Sophie felt a familiar pang of distance creeping in, but instead of reacting with frustration, she reminded herself of what she had learned. She resisted the urge to ask a million questions, and simply said, "I'm here if you need me." Then, she gave him space. A few hours later, Alex came to her on his own, wrapped his arms around her, and said, "I was just dealing with work stress. I appreciate you giving me time." That moment was a breakthrough. It was proof that they were learning to trust the process, to respect each other's natural ways of handling things rather than forcing immediate resolutions. Their fights became less frequent, and when they did happen, they resolved faster. The resentment that had once built up over days now faded within hours. Months passed, and Alex and Sophie's relationship felt stronger than ever. They no longer feared their differences. Instead, they embraced them. Sophie found peace in knowing that Alex's silence wasn't rejection. It was just his way of processing. And Alex found joy in making small efforts to connect in ways that made Sophie feel loved. They realized that love wasn't about trying to make each other the same, but about celebrating their differences and finding balance. For the first time in a long time, they felt truly understood, not just as individuals, but as partners. Their love had always been strong, but now, it was unshakable. And in the end, that was the real lesson from men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Not that men and women were doomed to misunderstand each other, but that with patience, effort, and the right mindset, any relationship can thrive. For men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We learned that men and women have fundamentally different emotional needs, communication styles, and ways of handling stress. Men tend to retreat into their cave to solve problems independently, while women seek connection by talking through their emotions. Understanding these differences helps partners avoid frustration and build empathy instead of expecting each other to think and react the same way. The book teaches that love isn't about changing one another, but about appreciating and adapting to these differences. By offering reassurance, practicing patience, and expressing love in ways that resonate with our partner, relationships can become stronger, more fulfilling, and free from unnecessary conflicts. Ultimately, successful relationships thrive on mutual respect, understanding, and a willingness to meet each other's emotional needs.